Come, all you moonshiners, if you want to hear.
Well, as promised, I think I mentioned this a while ago that I wanted to get together with Kevin and Andreas and do kind of like an update, and see where they're at and so maybe some trials and tribulations. But look, I could talk forever, but why don't we just bring them in so we can see what's going on, and we'll let them tell you their story. Well, there we are. We got Kevin and
Hello,
Andreas.
everybody.
So there's the big wave. So what's been going on?
Staying busy, figuring things out, messing everything up and doing it 3 times over. That whole thing. Recording all the YouTube videos, which has actually been a lot of fun, a lot more fun than I thought the videos were going to be. I thought they were going to be a lot of work, and they are. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of fun work.
Oh, all right.
They certainly are, and they, I have to say it again. They are not scripted, and which is why it appears that we're just sitting there, kind of just chit chatting and not doing much. But we do try to, in every video, get a few points across, things that we've learned, things that have gone wrong, and so yeah, we do try. But please give us some feedback to let us know how we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. And as I can notice already, other people probably not questioning, but realizing that you are, in fact, a doctor. And we've caught you at work, dressed in your Smurf outfit, ready to do this, right? Or you're on duty now, aren't you?
Well, I am, but it's winding down. The OR is done. So my patients have left the recovery room, but I do have patients upstairs that, could need my help. Hopefully not. For their sake, hopefully they will not. But yeah, I'm here and I'm waiting for my relief that's coming in at 6:30.
Wow, that's amazing.
So what a lot of people don't know is he only works on penis extensions. That's it. That's all he does.
Only works on what?
Never mind. I'm not going to say that one again. I'm hoping that it actually wasn't caught by the camera. So.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, but for the sake of everybody else, we've got Kevin back out there at the Cock and Horse, which is the setup that they had. That's where I stayed. What an amazing environment. So we've got Kevin caught in the throes of not depression but expression, and of course Andreas. We it's kind of hard to track him down at any moment in time, and I kind of know that from experience as well. So we're just glad to have you on board as well for a change, because I've talked to Kevin a couple of times before, but you're always at work.
Well, I'm certainly glad to be here.
That's great. Okay, what have you guys learned? Let's share with us. I mean, what's the biggest update? What's a matter of fact, what would be helpful is, because we're going into this kind of like not blind, but in a way, a lot of people are, about getting set up and what to do and how to do it. And I mean, trials and tribulations, do's and don'ts, successes and failures. And I know that's a big list, but start wherever you feel like.
So from a distiller's perspective, we've learned a lot that. Obviously there are time-tested, things that have been done since distillation has been started. But Drew, a lot of the things that we've tried from user suggestions, there are improvements that can be made from the very beginning. We've seen exponential improvements on what our still can produce, just by a few small upgrades. Like take the PID, George, that you sent us. We call it the Dunkinator. That thing is a beast, and it's amazing. And there's so many different settings to be able to fine tune it. And we've just now started kind of getting into what fine tuning a PID is, or how the actual still itself is set up, how the column's set up, how columns packed, how much packing, what is your packing. These are a lot of things that you kind of get on YouTube a little bit, but taking what we've seen, what we've learned from you, user suggestions and things like that. I mean, we've seen at least like a 60-70% increase in production out of our big still. Now we're still kind of tinkering with the Mighty Mini. That one, believe it or not, that one I actually find to be a little bit harder to use than the big still. Which I found to be fascinating. It's not the big still, I think maybe because of volume, it's a lot easier to control. You don't get these huge, ebbs and flows. With Mighty Mini, it's so small that at 3 gallons, there's massive temperature spikes if you don't have that PID dial in, right? Yeah. So that's, from a distiller's perspective. On the distillation part, we've learned a lot about, obviously, fermenting, specific gravities and things like that, a lot more than when you first came here. We were like, we're supposed to track what again? Or we're supposed to, we gotta clean that thing. Hold on, wait a minute. We're not gonna clean that.
I think you can understand. I think you can understand why now that we didn't go, okay, here's everything you need to know from A to Z, because it would have been information overload.
Yeah.
You know, but you got the high points or the key points, and a lot of the other stuff. It's not that you figure it out on your own, but what I'm impressed with is you go search it out on your own, because you know, you start to figure out that if I'm tracking this temperature at this point, what is the effect on at that point? And then what can I do to influence it on this back part?
Yeah. And those are things that we're figuring out right now. Like Kevin said, we are still in the process of discovering, but the PRD is can be very specifically geared towards your still. And every still is different, and the settings consequently will be different. So, you know, you could of course just auto tune it, and you know, it'll do okay. But in order to really get the most out of it, I think understanding it properly and playing with the settings and just seeing what works, what doesn't, I think is a discovery journey on its own, and quite exciting.
Yeah, you know, that's what has instigated, and I don't know if you can see this behind me. I've got a setup back here. I just did a video today, as a matter of fact, and what I thought, I don't know, what do you think? What I thought was to start a new series of videos on just controlling the heat, heater elements and heating stills, totally. And I started from the very, very basic, like the most inexpensive, the simplest. And the easiest way to control it is you plug it in, it's on, you unplug it, it's off. You plug it in, it's on, you unplug it, it's off. I mean, that's the easiest, the simplest. But then you know, you move up to the next step for like $15, you know, and you know, you build your own controller. You know, and then we take a step further. We'll go to the SCR, and then we'll go to the pulse width modulators, and then we'll go to the PIDs. And then I'm thinking about going to the various PIDs at the different values, different voltages, because it became really overwhelming with the demand to build them here. So I kind of stopped doing that, just so that I can get back to, you know, playing with other stuff. You know?
We actually did something yesterday, and it was fascinating. So it was with the PID actually. So we started off with it in PID mode, and then we switched over into just the AT mode. And so what we did was we tried to figure out the percentage of what our our packing and our pre-condenser can hold, hold the heating element back, right? So we figured that out. In the beginning, it was like 44%. At 44% power, it's not going to increase or decrease. So what we did was we brought the temperature up to what we want to still have, 175. And then we took it at 44%, we brought it up to 45, 46%. And we started seeing that 1/10 of a degree rise. And the second that happened, all of a sudden, this thing started producing insane amounts of distillate at 190 proof. It was the size of a pencil coming out of it. It filled up a gallon in like 16 minutes. And we're like, oh my God, that is like, wow. So it was just that right there. So we then of course tried to replicate that, and we couldn't. So we're gonna keep trying to replicate that. That was like a huge time saving. It goes from like standing there for 12 hours or being there for like 45 minutes. It's like,
yeah, I hear you. Oh wow. What are your thoughts on recipe design and what I call the chaotic attitude or approach towards it? It's like, well, I've got this, and I got this, and I got this, and I got that, and I got a couple of these, and I got a little bit of this, and I got a little bit of that. I'm put it all together. What do you think it's going to taste like? Yeah, of course I always have. I don't know.
Well, that's actually why we love, and I'm going to let Andreas take this one, because it goes into the Mighty Mini a little bit, and what we decided to do with the Mighty Mini that we were initially doing with the Big Still.
So we've actually we're still on a discovery journey, but we've discovered quite a bit. So initially, Kevin and I had a back and forth argument about the gin basket, where it actually should be on the still, because there were various. Obviously, we do a lot of reading on the internet, and there were various voices that said maybe putting the gin basket on the downward side, on the descending loop. Just on top of the worm, will improve the taste. It will get more oils from the botanicals into the mix, etc., and just be a very wonderful kind of a thing. So we actually did that, and not easy to do, by the way, on the big still. But we did it, and then did 2 runs on that, and the results were frankly less than encouraging.
I like that. That's an official answer. Less than encouraging.
So not to be repeated. So we quickly gave up on that, and decided the gin basket definitely has to be on the ascending loop, because otherwise, first of all, it's not going to be a clear liquid that comes out, and it really did not taste very nice. But it was something we wanted to do and just prove to ourselves, and we did.
Oh, cool.
But what we're doing with the concoctions is, of course, every time we do a run with a gin, we write down exactly what, the botanicals that we did put in. And what we're going to be doing next is that we want to do a very concentrated run on the Mighty Mini for gin. And we've already distilled quite a bit of, just pure clear liquid, pure clear spirit. And we are thinking, what happens if we just kind of mix that in, basically dilute down the flavor a little bit, and then polish the whole thing, and get the proof down to, I don't know, about 100 or so. So we haven't done it yet. But we're planning to, and in fact, that's the next thing that will happen, and that could potentially be, an interesting step towards making more with less.
Yeah. Well, so find out if you thought about using that. I did that video on making your own gin extract, and that small amount, and then inject that in there. I've got a bunch of it laying around here. I'm telling you, I got enough to do a lot. I just might send you a little jar of it. Just say, hey, Jason, squirt this in there and see what that does. And see what you like. I like it. I mean, to me, I've got a really pleasant. And again, I start with a really high spirit, and cut it down and then add that. And I'm like, that to me became my answer. After a lot of investigation, a lot of research, that became my answer of how's this actually done on a commercial level when you're dealing with thousands of gallons at a time? Because how big does how big does a gin basket have to be on a still if you're producing 1,000 gallons?
Yeah.
Start to think about that. Now you start to limit it to your physical space. So that's where all that came from, and some other YouTube videos that I'll watch, because I'm an avid watcher and a sharer and gleaner of steel. We call it SIS, steal ideas shamelessly.
You actually, one of the videos coming out, we piggyback off you a lot, actually.
Oh, good. Hey, we've got Mike.
Right.
In Florida. Mike is working on. He's working on a really interesting project. He's going to take. He's got the Mr. Distiller, a little. Looks like the coffee can, the coffee pot. It's sort of like it's a novelty distiller, and it holds about a gallon. So you'll make about a pint, maybe 2 pints. So it's not really, doesn't really lend itself to an avid home distiller, but it's just kind of neat, And he's got a gin basket attachment that he purchased with it, and he's going to try to make that extract. And then he said he's going to videotape that and send it to me so I can share it with everybody.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. We actually owe Mike a phone call, don't we? We haven't done it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I'm sure he's waiting on that phone call still.
He's holding his breath. I mean, he'd be full to his hell at this point. Yeah. We go back to the Mighty Mini for just a quick second, because we've done a lot of tests with the Mighty Mini. We started off doing like stainless steel versus copper. And I don't want to kind of go into the results right yet because we're really not done testing. But what we figured out is, and it kind of talks about the recipe argument that you had. Our bake still is much better at producing raw volume than it is producing, flavor profiles. Now, we've been able to create flavor profiles out of it, but you have to use like a lot. It's just a lot of work. What our intent is to use the bake still to actually just create the neutral grain spirits or the ethanol, dilute that down to 50-50, and then put that mix into the Mighty Mini and use the Mighty Mini as flavoring. Because if you take the big still and just do a run, and you take the exact same stuff and put that in the Mighty Mini, they do not taste the same. The big still does a better job, and I don't know if it's because of volume, of producing just a raw product than the Mighty Mini does. Now, for people out there, if you have the ability to have a big still and small still, I would suggest doing that, because we spent and lost a ton of money on trying different things in the big still, and it's, every time that thing runs, it's over $250. It's not just in product, electricity, and everything else that goes into it. So it's an expensive little shot that thing does for 12 hours. So if you can do that on a small still, you have to definitely do that on a small still. Yeah. Start with the basics. The proven recipe.
Right, and just the fact that the run on the Mighty Mini is just so much smaller, allows it for being just an experimental still. And if things go wrong, okay, so you've lost 3 gallons worth of whatever, but you're not 20 gallons down the line. Right. And so for a discovery, for the discovery stage, which obviously we're in, that is the one thing that just made sense to us.
So we've never done anything. It's usually Kevin's first 3 shots is the good stuff, and he starts drinking the crap that we don't like. That's usually how it works.
Yeah. Well,
but so
I'm like, what? All of a sudden, you got nothing to say. When's the next episode coming out?
That was supposed to have been yesterday, but then the Super Bowl happened, and I got really upset over the Super Bowl, so I didn't do it. I was actually editing this when you had called me. The next episode is the final of Frankenstill, which we're calling Her Name is Chuck. That's the final Frankenstill episode for now. Yeah. Well, maybe there's this whole thing about
there is hope for more, but for the moment we're done. But with plans for the future, let's put it that way.
Okay.
So if I had my brother, we'd be ordering $1,000 of SPP from Russia today, but my business partner is like, no.
Yeah. We talked about that on the phone about the spiral prismatic packings. I don't know. Like I told you, I've got 2 stills. It's packed full. Because it came that way. I didn't put them in there. It came that way. And both of those stills work extremely well. And I'm sure that has some function of it because there's a lot of surface area in there. But those things are not cheap.
No, that was the thing. So we wanted to try it because we read and watched a bunch of videos on how effective they are. But then we looked at our still at a 5-inch column, 40 inches tall, volume-wise. It's 13 liters of that stuff.
Yeah. And by the way, so everybody knows the SPP, the spiral prismatic packing, which it's not a craze right now, but there's some interest in that. It's stainless steel and it's really small. The best way to describe it is really small springs. And there's a bunch of them. And what happens is when you get all these things packed together, of course, you got a lot of voids where vapor can travel through in your column. But the good thing is that there's so much of it and so much of them that you get all this surface area for your vapors to start to condense on and travel across and then re-vaporize. So there is a school of thought, and I think that there's some valuable evidence that shows that they are effective and they do increase your output. But if you're going to spend like you said, if you're going to spend $1,000 on spiral prismatic packings to get your still to go from 185 to 190, I'm not sure that's worth it. Yeah. Could I get it all the time? George, I got this thing running. It runs at 187, man. Got it from start to finish. And how do I get it higher? Well, what's the problem? Where's the issue here? Why? Okay, I know because you want to get there because to you it's a goalpost. You want to get there. I understand.
Well, not only that, but it kind of guarantees a certain amount of purity. And less of the undesirables have made it across into the condensing line, and that of course is a big plus. And theoretically speaking, these prismatic coils I guess would be somewhat more effective than just putting a whole bunch of copper coil or copper wool and what have you in there.
Right.
but the question is, what's the practicality? I mean, how much different is it going to make? I mean, so it's going to maybe reduce your 4-shot from a beaker full to 3/4 of a beaker.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Does exactly that. A lot of times what we say is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This versus reward.
And if this thing, don't get me wrong, if this thing were, $50, $60, $70 to buy,
yeah,
I'm sure we would, and say, look, let's give this a shot. Let's give it a try. But the current price that we're looking at is, I think, for something that is not guaranteed to absolutely make an amazing amount of difference, I think it's prohibitive.
Right.
So my plan for that is I'm going to complain so much that the guy that sells it in Russia is going to give us like and like just send us a bunch. We're going to make a video, man. You Russian guy, you make it. Send it to us.
It ain't gonna happen.
Damn it. But no, so I mean, there's been, and you is the juice worth the squeeze? There's been a lot of that, and we've gotten a lot of comments on. People are like, we should try this, and then we start looking at, well, oh my God, what is that going to cost? Not just in like money for the parts to do it, but in the labor and all this other kind of stuff. And what am I really getting out of this? Am I getting like 1% better? I mean, I'm not doing that whole kind of thing, So there's a lot of that. That still as a whole, and most stills as a whole, their design has been around for how long for a reason, and they function pretty good, right out the gate.
So have you noticed a major difference from your first run to, let's say, for instance, your last run?
Oh my God, yeah.
Are you able now to have some kind of predictability in what your output is going to be, and what the by volume, by proof, by flavor? Do you have you kind of now have an idea?
Yeah, can I let me take that.
It's really helpful to measure the ABV before you actually put the fermented the fermented fruit into the still. Very helpful. I can't stress that point enough.
Evidently, somebody's not doing that.
Damn! He's like just doing it.
No. Remember the joke we had going around there? Says, "Hey man, you want a broken hydrometer? Hand it to Kevin. Give it to Kevin. He'll break it."
I went out the week after I bought 15 of those things. I haven't broke one since. It's like, what the hell, man?
They got a brain, man. They got a mind of their own. They know there's plenty of them, man. They're going to hang around. I swear, if you've got one hydrometer and you lay it on a flat table and turn around and you catch it out the corner of your eye, that bitch will start to roll. It'll take off on you. If you've got more than one, you can stand it on its end and turn around and it ain't moving. It knows that there's no sense in me breaking because he's already got another one.
So it's funny. So like the week after you left, you know how you were saying, hey, look, in your parrot, pack some copper down there because every now and again they might slip. Yeah. So I never packed the copper, right? And so the week after you left, I broke 3 in this stupid ass parrot. Yeah.
Crash.
Yeah. So now we have copper in there, which is really, really good. But I did find out that, with certain parrots, don't put so much copper in there because like your hydrometer is so tall, you can't read actually what you're pumping out. The same thing over like 170. But I would say from not just, a performance-based understanding the still, understanding how to work the still, in the beginning, a lot of it was, hurry up and wait. So you're putting it in and you're just literally sitting there watching this thing. Right. And you're like, you're there for 10, 12 hours. And we were doing it in shifts. I would go do the first 5 or 6 hours. You do the next 5 or 6 hours. Cause like, I'm not going to sit here for 12 hours. Now that we know, really, we fine tune the still, understand how it performs, what it performs, when it does what it needs to do, when it needs to be adjusted, things like that. There's a lot of now, okay, get it going. We can go out and go do this, go hang out with our family, go snow sledding. Cause Maryland, we seem to have a good bit of that going on right now. Or, go do something else. So it's not so much, I think the still we've learned from the still is, about how it wants to run as much as we've learned to run the still. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that does. That makes sense.
The predictability is here now.
Yeah.
And we've gained enough experience and knowledge with it, with our particular stills, that we can say, okay, we know what to expect.
There you go. Good.
More or less, of
Yeah.
course.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah. And of course that just goes for ours, because I say it again, every still is different. And you know, they're like cars. Not every car runs the same. In fact, they're all different. And stills are the same. Who would have thought?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, there's all too often you hear the old, you know, it's the, okay, I got a still, I got what I got, and I followed all the instructions, I made the mash, and I'm going to make a Jack Daniels, or I'm going to make a Southern Comfort, or I'm going to, you know, and then it comes out not necessarily what they're looking for, and they're really, really disappointed and discouraged, and you're like, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
There's a certain amount of art and skill and understanding, you know, where you get like you said, where you're at now, where you got a feel for, you can map out and predict, you can chart what your anticipated draw is going to be, what your proof is going to be based on how you're running it, what you're controlling. You can influence all that stuff, and you can also start to predict what your flavor profile is going to be like, and then you can have the ability to adjust that, influence that. But it definitely doesn't happen, you know, where you open the box, your first still, you put it up, you turn it on, you go, boom, where's my Jack Daniels?
Yeah.
It's true.
It all too often.
A still is like a girlfriend. You know, when she's new, you don't know how she's going to react to you saying, hey, I'm going to go see the lads for a drink. You know, I'll see you tomorrow night. You know, whereas if you're married, you know exactly what to expect, and you already pack your pillow and put it in the guest room, you know, because you know that's where you're going to end up.
Oh, well said, Andreas. Well said. Oh,
so I do have a question for you, George. I got something for you. So, so this is a debate between Andreas and I, okay? And it's more of a, you know, flavor versus, you know, time savings. What are your thoughts on mash versus wash? What do you prefer to make as a ferment? Do you prefer to make mashes or washes?
if I make a vodka or a gin, I use a wash.
Okay.
I'm going to make a bourbon.
Have you ever done a bourbon?
Really, sorry, I'm going to interrupt, but the mash, and that's my own personal opinion at this stage. A mash is very good to bring, you know, the kind of the corn, rye, etc. flavor over, because, you know, you're doing a bourbon, you're not doing a reflux, you know, you're doing all this, and you're actually trying to get this flavor across. Whereas with gins and vodkas, all you want is the ETOH, the pure alcohol. Everything else, you know, you want to leave in your kettle, basically.
Exactly. That's exactly what we described.
Yeah.
So I have an argument to that, though. Okay, so why is it that you can't do an extract-based bourbon where you're actually doing the same thing what you did, George, in your video of creating a gin extract system, but using like the hop or the barley and all that other stuff, the corn, to create that kind of flavor profile? Because washes inherently are a lot faster. It's you know, you don't have to sit here, and this is a lot less work too, right? So why can't you make a bourbon kind of similarly to how you do a gin, where you're just using an
I'll give you the first answer that comes to mind is there's a definite difference in body and mouthfeel from a bourbon to a whiskey to a gin or a vodka.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, that would be my first answer.
Sure.
On a litany of other shit.
Yeah. And I would also say we can probably ride the experience that distillers have had for decades and centuries before us, and they're doing it with a mash. I mean, there's got to be something to it.
Yeah.
There's got to be a certain reason why they do that, because a wash, like you said, is easier.
Yeah, I often say, you know, major distilleries, you know, in most cases, not in all, but in most cases, use 3 basic ingredients.
Right.
Water, grains, and yeast.
Okay.
I mean, really, believe it or not, that's probably in most cases, that's sort of like the base ingredient. And when it comes to those grains, it's usually not more than a variety of 2 types, maybe a corn and a rye, or a wheat and an oat, or just a barley and a rye. I mean, you know, that basically that's it. I mean, and I say that, look, most of them been around for hundreds of years, you know. And what'd you say, Kevin? There's like 24 or 2,700 of them in the United States. Yeah. It's been working. You know, I'm like, you know, yeah, again, you know, you can't fix stupid. Yeah. I mean, like I said, the wheel on the wall is going to be around forever, and so is whiskey.
Sure.
It's been made the same way for hundreds of years, and they kind of got that figured out.
Yeah, but okay, sure. But there's always that. There's that.
Your own personality. You can add your own forte, and something. You can have something that's so unique no one else could ever make. And I got that. I mean, that's really nice. But
Sure.
in general terms, there's a lot of value in using a basic recipe and get it right and learn the still. Like you said, let the still show you how it wants to run, and then understand how you want to run the still
Right.
before you take off into hanging chicken inside the still, or some of these other.
We're doing grass.
I'm going to add another point here, and I'm going to say that the final product is also very much consumer driven.
Exactly.
Okay. So over the years, of course, surely when they first started distilling, I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, they were experimenting, they were doing this and that, and people decided, I like this kind of a flavor and feel to my whiskey, to my bourbon. And the distillers discovered that the only way they're going to achieve that and actually have a customer basis that will follow them and be faithful is by doing it the way they've always done it, or the way that they worked it out many, many years ago, which is, as George said, the 3 ingredients, right? The grain, the water, and the yeast. And making a mash as opposed to a wash is just the way to achieve that that experience that the consumer is looking for.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, hold on. I'll listen. The last time that argument was made was by the largest wagon manufacturer as cars are being invented. You have a point. Yes. Okay. They've been doing it for thousands of years. Sure. It doesn't mean it's the best way. It doesn't mean it's the perfect way. It just means they've been doing it for 200, 300, 400, 500 years. So
but
I think it's possible.
I'm going to say it a different way. So let's say we experiment with a wash and we try to somehow create the flavor with hanging a dead chicken in there or whatever George was suggesting. That's going to be a lot of fine tuning, a lot of hits and misses, and to what end? What are we trying to achieve here?
Right.
We're trying to not have to use that grinder that gets the entire freaking distillery dusty. That's what we're trying to achieve.
That brings up an interesting story, and there's a lot of truth to this. I said I had heard from a guy one time. He says my granddad would make it, and he said we went out there one day, and he's got this big 55-gallon drum of mash. He says, and he went out there, and he says, and there was a rat that got in there and drowned, and this dead rat. He goes, so nobody was there. He said, so he just pulled the rat out, and he said, and he ran at it. He said, he told me, he said, that was the best tasting liquor he ever made. He said, so from that day forward, every time he made a mash, he caught a rat and threw it in. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is that he had no idea that it was the rat that caused that, because he just made that assumption, and that's why I'm so not stuck on, but I'm really, really interested in trying to explain and determine what effect does A have, what effect does B have with A, what happens if I can manipulate A and B or something else, and what does that do before I go on a limb and go, oh yeah, hell, throw a rat in every time, it tastes great.
So we're not going to use any rats in any stage of our process.
No rats.
Mice only mice.
Okay, or cats. Oh yeah, I've heard some really strange ones. I mean, so okay. A lot of times when I get stories like that, I said, just remember, Grandpa taught you everything you know. He didn't teach you everything he knows. And there's a lot of truth to that too. So yeah, because our purpose is all about unlocking all the mysteries, and trying to solve all the issues and questions that arise through this process. Again, I'm a firm believer in Andreas. I know you can ascribe to this as well. Within your profession, if you know everything from left to right within your profession, when something goes wrong and the effects of all of that, you know exactly where to go to resolve it.
Right, and 85% of that is due to experience.
Exactly.
If you've done it long enough, you've come across a similar situation at some stage.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're fresh out of school, you're going to be at the very height of your theoretical knowledge, because you've read all those books over and over, and you know every aspect of the theory. And now you're in practicality confronted with a situation that you have never experienced before. And guess what? It's unnerving.
Right. It doesn't match somehow.
Right. I mean, you manage because you have to.
Yeah.
But the you do not enter the comfort zone until you've got some years of experience under your belt. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so and that actually brings me to a really good point, and that's what George's,
That's what's left from the Super Bowl party. We started off with about 3/4 of a gallon. Look at that.
No, so what I honestly, George, and I'm, I said
that's all I have.
Yeah, that's all he's got is N95 mask.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I think I said this to you when you were here, and I'm gonna keep looking this way because that's where you are on my screen. But honestly, we had you were honest. How do I explain this? Because I don't want to blow too much smoke up your skirt. The amount of resource and education and optimism and hope that it can be done at home, or in a small distillery or wherever, through your videos and your hundreds of videos. It's a lot has been you, really. A lot of our determination, our watching a video that you did, rewatching a video that you did, just trying to kind of figure out and
roll up my skirt and I'm loving it.
No, you were so huge to the community. You were so huge to the community. And we took a lot of that into thought when we weren't even going to do a YouTube series. We weren't going to do that at all. It was you that kind of convinced us, hey, you guys should do this on YouTube because people can start following you through this process.
Because
sorry, go ahead.
No, I hate to interrupt you, but I loved your mission statement. Is this? I'm not here to teach you how to do it. I'm here to show you what we've learned and tried, and here's where we succeeded, and here's where we failed, and here's what we know.
yeah, and here's how drunk we got doing it, because we do every single time.
Right. But Kevin is right. I mean, you basically have teed us off and pointed us in the right direction. And we kind of took the ball and ran with it, but it originated with you, George. And again, I can't thank you enough.
No, I appreciate that. My wife is impressed that we stay in touch. And I told her, I said, oh man, you're like friends for life, man. This is amazing. Hey, and here's something I learned from you guys. You know what this is? This is where the crab cakes come in, man. It comes in FedEx overnight for everybody out there. GW, what's the name of the place?
G&M's.
G&M's. Yeah, G&M's. It's a restaurant, the best crab cakes in the world. And ship them overnight, man. I'm telling you what, you talk about good. So, we've had them several times. They are excellent. Oh, yeah.
I say again, crab cakes are a summer thing. It's winter, lads.
It's winter where you're at. It's 70 degrees here in Texas.
Well, I remember those snow pictures you sent me.
Yeah. It did actually snow here one day. We got about 4 or 5 inches, and I was like, oh.
What is this white stuff?
The whole state shut down. Oh, yeah, when it snows in Texas, man, we shut down. Don't nobody go nowhere.
Dude, 5 inches, he's driving a sports car.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, you guys, yeah. But here, man, when it snows, I mean, there's no such thing as Mission Essential. You're shut down. But it only lasts for a couple hours,
Oh my God.
All right. Hey, look, we've been at this for like 40 minutes, so I don't want to bore everybody to death, but just wanted to thank you guys for popping
Wait,
in.
can I ask one more question? Hold on. One more question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've watched our video, and how we tried to set up our videos was kind of like how I run. So you've got your tails and heads in the beginning. That's us joking about. You've got the body, which is usually what we did, and then you've got the heads and foreshots. Then you've got the hearts. Then you've got the tails, and that's our last commentary. What is your thought on our video? What critiques do you have? What can we do to improve or make it better?
As a viewer, I'd like to see more activity around the still and the still process.
Okay.
Because I think that's just that. Okay. I think that is classic. That is there's no substitute for, I can sit here and describe how to connect something, or I can sit here and describe how to make a mash, but there's no substitute for. And then you pour this in here, and and you actually see missed the pour, or you put the charcoal in here and whoop, tube falls out.
Sure. So I agree with you. And there's been a couple of users who have said, like, okay, enough talking. Show us the distillation. Show us like that problem. And I agree with that. So we installed a full room microphone down there with a bunch of different cameras to be able to do those different cuts and shots. And this is how we make this. This is like, how we heat this up, all that kind of good stuff. How we do a run. This is what the run's getting, that kind of stuff. So new videos coming out, hopefully they'll be more in depth.
Hey, and remember, there is nothing wrong with being a bit more than less verbose. Because I always keep in mind, and for a lot of viewers out there, I always keep in mind that we have folks like Mike, who is blind, and he's listening to the videos and gaining as much as he can from it. So a lot of times it deserves and it begs a little bit more of an explanation. So the more you can explain while you're showing, look, you got to have a thick skin. I get the comments all the time. George, you talk too much. I'm like, okay, I mean, what do you want me to do? You want me to just, open a video and go, okay, put this wire here, put that wire there. There, it's done.
Right.
And then, of course, your first question is going to be why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's to satisfy everybody, I think, because that's impossible. But I think to just have the majority of the community saying, yeah, I like the direction you're going with this, and I like the format. I think that's what we're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah, you want the community to kind of drive the program instead of us trying to drive the community. You follow? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So for those who are, if you're watching, I mean, for those, comment below, share, get on Still Brothers official. Just type in Still Brothers in your search bar on YouTube. The first thing that pops up. And watch their episodes. I mean, gosh, subscribe and send in comments, because we do actually love the idea of having the community drive the content, as opposed to trying to drive content to the community and force a response. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
I know.
And with that being said, folks, I want you to just give us a wave, because we're gonna check out. And so to everybody out there, God knows we love you. Happy distilling, and you two don't take off and go too far.
All right.